Now, for those who are socially media savvy, the GMID leadership group, of which Suzanna, our next speaker, is a co-chair, as we've heard, have really started ramping up on the social media channels, so Twitter and Facebook, all of those sort of things. Now, it is an area that traditionally we have been absolutely flogged, and we do it really badly, to be honest. And it is an area where you look, if you were to read the Guardian newspaper online, for example, you'll see it shared X thousand times, and it gives the impression that a lot more people in the cities might care about these issues than they really do, and we don't seem to be able to argue our case coherently often on social media. And I'm really pleased that if you start following Give Us a Fair Flow is the hashtag, and for many you might know what a hashtag is, but if you start following that, particularly the Fair Flow Mob and GMID leadership group is what it's called, on your Facebook and Twitter accounts, those sort of things, they are doing a pretty good job. They've hired Claire Miller, and she's been able to break it down into those bite-sized pieces that we heard. So whenever there is a story in the media, these guys at Fair Flow are coming back at it and saying, well, here's the facts. And that's really important in that social media world. But Suzanna Sheed is from Shepparton, and Suzanna would like you to come up.
Well, we're a very reasonable lot of people, aren't we, country people? We all sit around and we're all incredibly nice to each other. And just at this minute, Peter Walsh is right, we have to be, because we've taken the position with the GMID Water Leadership Forum that the 605 and the 70 gigs in the north, being part of the plan, need to go through, because we don't ever want to get to a situation where we have to start again with a Murray-Darling Basin plan that's completely fallen over and we start again, because we know we would have to start again. We're not going to get away with ever going back to the way things were. We've got to keep moving forward. And so with the GMID Water Leadership Forum, we took the view when we started back in early 2015 that we had to accept a certain number of things, and there was a lot of science behind the fact that the environment was in trouble. Things had been going wrong. So we decided that we would go with the 2,750 as a starting point, but never the 450. And that is the position that we've taken all along and we've maintained. And when we hear Minister Littleproud saying that the plan will be delivered in full and on time and it's a 3,200 gig plan, we get really worried about that. But for all the reasons Damien and Peter and Austin have said, we're keeping our powder dry for another month or so to see whether that occurs. But if those disallowance motions are defeated, or what we want to happen happens, and there is still talk about the 450 coming out of our food producing water pool, then we will be getting very angry. Now, one of the reasons I'm speaking here today is because Helen Dalton's not here, so I'm really pleased to have the opportunity. I think it's really important to talk about how we advocate for our communities, and one of the ways that we have done it is by setting up our own group, the GMID Water Leadership Forum. It's a really broad range of people. We've got the Victorian Environmental Water Holder as an observer. We have dairy, we have all the people David referred to, so it's a broad group. We try to maintain a reasonable position and not go too far one way or the other, but our main goal was to establish a relationship with the Minister for Water in Victoria so that she knew what we in the north of the state thought was important. And we've been able to do that very successfully. And when I ask a question in the Victorian Parliament that's to do with water and the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, I would say that the only two people who know what I'm talking about are Lisa Neville and Peter Walsh. And there's a serious lack of knowledge in cities and cities about what all this means. People's eyes glaze over when you give a speech about water unless you're in a forum like this where people do have some understanding about it and who feel the effects of what is happening. So over the last few years, we've become incredibly frustrated with the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, and that has been born out of the fact that we probably didn't realise early on that they're just a bunch of bureaucrats who are doing what they've been told to do, which is to roll out the plan. It's the politics of it that is much more important. It's the politicians we have to get to. We have to get them thinking the way we are thinking, and to understand and realise the impacts that are being had on our communities by all of this, and the disrespect that the Murray-Darling Basin Authority showed to RMCG when they launched their report, which we commissioned on our behalf at our own cost because the Murray-Darling Basin Authority were doing nothing, was really offensive. We've had to take them to task over the last couple of years, and we've had some admissions from them, and indeed we got a letter apologising for their behaviour out of them. Similarly, I'm sure it's the same with the Murray. The Murray region and the GMID are experiencing a lot of the same effects, and the RMCG reports really back that up. But it's not just us paying for our own reports who've been able to show what's happening. The Victorian government, on the back of the RMCG report, did their own, and it backed in what we had found. There are now accumulations of reports backing in what we've been advocating for. So we're at a stage where we don't take a lot of time talking to the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, really. I think it's our politicians, it's our senators, it's our federal politicians who we are really focusing on, and we've spent a lot of time just in recent months working with Damien Drum to let him know really strongly how our group feels about it, and we appreciate the fact that he's taken it to Canberra. But I think the outstanding issues immediately are just these disallowance motions and getting them through if that's possible, because we don't want to start at the very beginning again. We need to go forward. And all the issues about South Australia, yes, they're important, and I know on this side of the border you people are probably more passionate about them than we are at this stage, because we're trying to focus on what we see as the immediate issues and really bite them off one by one. We want to see no more buybacks ever. And yet in New South Wales, they're happening all the time. Willing sellers, that's just the way it seems to go. But in Victoria, we certainly don't want to see them, and I'm sure you don't want to see any more in the Murray. We've already got this Swiss cheese effect that is causing serious detriment to Goulburn Murray water, and I don't doubt Murray Irrigation is probably in a very similar position, because we've got channels going to farmers with a whole lot of farms who've had their water taken off them and no longer take water. So the viability of the very irrigation institutions that service us are now at risk. And so, what can I say? We've got to keep advocating. We've got to keep coming to meetings like this. I look at you all and, how many are under 60? How many are under 50? How many are under 40? We're really in trouble, because we are an ageing population here in this room. We need to continue with our advocacy, continue coming and keep encouraging a lot of those younger farmers who are out there probably harvesting their rice right now to come along as well. So again, advocacy is important. Keep lobbying and do what you can to get to your politicians to give them the message that you want them to hear loud and clear. Thank you.